All right, to set up authentication, we're going to use a very popular library called NextAuth. So head over to next-auth.js.org. Now, at the time of this video, we have this banner on the top saying NextAuth is becoming auth.js. So chances are in the future, when you're watching this video, the change or the transition has happened, and the website might change to auth.js.dev. Also, some of the packages that I'm going to show you in this section, their name might change in the future. So if something doesn't work, always look at the documentation for the most up-to-date information. Now let's see how we can set up NextAuth. So let's go to Get Started. Now to add this to an existing project, first we have to install NextAuth. So here in the terminal, let's install next-auth. Lovely. Now the second step is to add an API route or a route handler. In the previous versions of Next.js, where we used the pages router, we had API routes, but now that we have the app router, we have route handlers. So this documentation is for the previous versions of Next.js. With Next.js 13.2 or above, we have a different guide. So click here. So we have to add a route handler in the app folder. So we go in the app folder, inside /API/auth folder. We add this catch-all folder, NextAuth. And with this, we can handle any routes that start with /API/auth. So back to our project. Here in the API folder, let's add a new folder called auth. Then we add another folder. We wrap it in square brackets, which means we're going to define a parameter. Here we add ... which means catch all. And we call this parameter NextAuth. So with this folder, we represent a route that starts with /auth. So any route that starts with /auth, we're going to handle it right here. So we add a new file, route.ts. Now in this file, first we have to import NextAuth from NextAuth. So I'm going to copy this line, then paste it here. Next, we have to create a handler function. So we call NextAuth and give it a configuration object. Now we're going to come back to this in the next lesson. For now, don't worry about it and ignore this TypeScript error. So we call this and get a handler function. Now you know that in these route files, we have to export functions like get, post, and so on. So here we have to export an object. In this object, we add two functions. First, we add handler as get, then we add handler as post. So we are exporting this function with two different names, get and post. So any get or post request sent to this endpoint will be handled inside this handler function. So essentially what we're doing here is that we are letting NextAuth expose a bunch of endpoints that start with /auth. All right, we're done with this step. Next, we need to create two environment variables. So let's go to our env file. In this file, first we add NextAuth_URL. We set this to the address of our website. So localhost port 3000. Second, we add NextAuth_secret. And this has to be a long random string that NextAuth will use to encrypt and sign the authentication keys. So here we can set this to any long random string, or we can go to the terminal and use the OpenSSL tool to generate a random sequence of bytes. So as arguments, first we pass rand, which means random. Then we add -base64. So it's going to encode those random sequence of bytes using the base64 algorithm. And then we pass a number that specifies the number of bytes we want to generate. Let's say 32. So now those 32 bytes are encoded using the base64 algorithm. So we can grab this and put it in our env file. All right, so we're done with the basic setup. Next, we're going to configure a provider.